Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Travis Dykes, and today we are doing another episode of What Is That? Sponsored by Sweetwater Sound. So if you're new here, basically what my What Is That episodes and my What Is That series is me doing gear reviews of practical equipment and different things that you can use for bass and just as a musician in general that are actually practically helpful. So something I've been so curious about is like all these different types of strings. There's so many strings. You go to like Guitar Center or any music store, you see this whole wall of strings and different things like that. And honestly, I'm just always just super overwhelmed, and I'm just like, I find a pack and I'm just like, all right, that's it. That's the one I want. And like, I just grab it. And it's just like, and that's it, because there's just so many. I'm just like, my gosh. So when it comes to playing funk, gospel, and R&B, I wanted to show you some of the strings that I've heard from friends that are, professional musicians and just other players that play in churches and play with gospel artists and different things like that, and what they use for their strings. So we're gonna be going over Labellas, we're going over DR Fatbeams, DR Fatbeams, we're going over Ernie Ball strings, we're going over Rotosound strings, and I'm gonna be doing a little demo of all of them so you can kind of hear the sound, just kind of like what you would encounter if you're doing fingerstyle or slapping or anything that you would usually do in like an R&B, funk, or gospel music. So without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, so let's get started. The first pack of strings that we're gonna be going over are the DR nickel wound XLs. These are probably this is like the first pair of strings that like I changed to after getting my first bass years ago. And like, they're very versatile, very good. The only issue that I had with these a long time ago is that they were just too bright. They're too bright for everything that I was playing. Sometimes I would be going to playing like different genres like jazz or something like that, and they're just like really bright. But they've gotten better. They've gotten a lot better. But that was the only thing I had with these. But outside of that, literally these are some very, very versatile strings. I would definitely check these out if you're very nervous about like trying to spend money on strings. This is a great first pack to try out. So these are super versatile, and here's what they sound like when they're slapped. All right, now here's what they sound like fingerstyle. Now the next pair of strings are these Rotosound strings. I'll be honest with you, I was very impressed with these. The first strings that we talked about, the DRs, they are more like nickel wound, so they've got a little bit brighter sound. They've got like, when it comes to slap, man, they just hit you right in the face. These hit you right in the face, but they have that they're stainless steel strings, so they have a little bit more of like a even bite when you first get them. So like if you're playing with them, they still have that low end, there's still a little bit of that mid, but they still bite as well. I would definitely suggest if you're like a player that plays a lot of stuff that's got a slap and pop, but also stuff that has like a lot of mid and low tones, kind of like soul or funk and stuff like that, I would definitely suggest these because they're not too bright. They'll hit you in the face when you slap, but whenever you're just playing with fingerstyle, they're just like perfect. And they actually felt really good when you write it straight out of the pack. I'm like, man, and I will tell you this, these, I would take them straight out of the pack, and this is also with the stainless steel strings, is what I love about them. I would take them out of the pack and go play a gig with them. All right, now let's take a listen to what those Rotosounds sound like with the slap style. So now let's take a look at what these sound like with fingerstyle playing. These next pair of strings, I have to say, they're really unique string, especially for the gospel, funk, R&B, pop world. But these are these flat wound labella strings. These are some really, really cool and really, really great sounding strings, I'll say. I never really played with a lot of flat wound strings, and so this was like one of my first experiences with them. And I will say, like, they sound great. They sound really good. I would definitely, you know, suggest them for, like, you know, gospel, or even like R&B, like those vibe, gospel and R&B, that around that area, these are money. These sound so great. And just a little reminder, I don't have a string endorsement with any of these strings, so I'm not obligated to say anything great about any of these strings. I'm just giving you my true opinion on these strings. My only issue with these strings is that straight out of the pack, they are not fun to play on your hands. I've never had my hands feel like that playing any pair of strings, and I'm not saying that in a very negative way, but I just want to be honest with you guys. If you play flat wound strings, your fingers are probably already used to this and it's no issue at all. But when it comes to, if you're coming from like round wounds or stainless steel, these are gonna be a little bit of an adjustment. But if you never play flat wounds, it's just a different feel. One of the cool things and one of the great things about flat wounds as well is that they last a really long time. When they get older, they still sound the same. They still have like the sound from when you first put them on. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that gets better over time is the playability. So let's go ahead and hear what these Labellas sound like with the slap style playing. All right, now let's hear what they sound like with the fingerstyle playing. So the next pack is the Ernie Ball regular slinky strings. These are really a great string for bass, especially if you're a slap player. My gosh. If you want an example of what these sound like outside of this video, go check out my Instagram at Dykes. I have a video of one of my recent videos of me playing with like my red bass Lucy. I was playing with these strings and I was just like, oh my gosh, the bite out of these are ridiculous. I'm gonna show you here in a second what they sound like with slap and fingerstyle, but the bite out of these is insane. And they retain really well. They retain really well. This was the suggestions I got for this are gospel bass players. And so a lot of times when you're playing gospel, you want to have like that slap sound. You want to have that bright, just cutting sound. These really cut. The only little thing I didn't love about, you know, the regular slinky strings is that they take a little bit of time to wear down to where like it's not like too scooped. They have like a little bit of a scooped sound, like a lot of highs and some lows. If you play a lot of gospel and like you play a lot of stuff that wants that kind of scooped sound, that's a great string for it. And it's got some really great tone. I used it at church before. So let's check out what these Ernie Ball strings sound like with the slap style. All right, now let's check out what these Ernie Ball strings sound like with the fingerstyle. All right, last but not least are the DR high beam. I don't know if you guys have heard of DR. DR is a great company. They're known for making stainless steel strings and also like those black beauties and like the different colored strings as well for like rock players and stuff like that. But for some reason, I really enjoy these strings. These are the ones that you have seen me use in the past couple years of playing here and doing videos on YouTube. I haven't used these particular ones. I wasn't able to change into the Fatbeams, which are the ones I use. So I'll throw a little picture of it right here. The Fatbeams are the ones that I use on all my videos. The high beams is what I used before I started the Fatbeams, but they are just as great. And they've got a really bright sound and the high beams, the reason why they're called high beams is because they're bright. They have like a brighter sound. These are a great alternative when it comes to any funk and things like that, and you want to have that bright sound in your back pocket. So now let's take a look at what these sound like with the slap style. All right, now let's take a look at what this sounds like with the fingerstyle. My favorite pair of bass strings, the ones that you see on all of my videos, I don't really even have to give an example because you guys have heard them on all of my videos, is the DR Fatbeams. And the thing is, with the DR Fatbeams, the reason why I use them and the reason why I love them, because one, I said the stainless steel strings, they sound great right out of the pack, and two, when they wear, they get fatter. The mid-range doesn't die. It just kind of gets a little bit fatter. It gets a little bit more round. It gets a little bit more, instead of scoop sound, a little bit more of a mid-range sound. Some people don't like that. That's fine. Like that's the reason why they're my strings. That's the sound that I love. But like when it comes to everybody else, you may like something more brighter. You may want them to be bright the entire time. Last year, 2020, I did not change my strings the entire year. The entire year, I did not change my strings. I mean, one, the pandemic, I wasn't playing as much, but two, they just sounded great. Like they just sounded great the entire time. And I'm sure you guys didn't even notice that I didn't even change my strings the entire year. But that is one of the beauties of the Fatbeam strings. So I would definitely suggest, if you like that type tone, or you like my tone, I would definitely go check those out. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. When it comes to picking the perfect pair of strings for what you're doing, depends on the sound that you're trying to convey, the style of music that you're playing, and also the type of gigs that you are playing. So if you're a church player and you're like 90% of the time you're playing gospel, I would suggest something like a regular slinky string, or like the high beams, or even like the nickel wound strings. Or if you're playing like a lot of different styles and you want something very versatile, the nickel wound strings are great. The swing bass, the Rotosound swing bass, awesome. And even like the ones that I use, the DR Fatbeams, so great. For any of the soul, like R&B, kind of like that vibe, I would definitely check out the Labella deep talking strings, because that is just the sound. So whatever strings you buy, even if there's none of the five that I went over today, what I would suggest for you to do is think about and look at bass videos when it comes to the tone of what you're going for. Because the thing is that all these strings are great strings. Every single pack of these are great strings, but they all have their little space, where they fit in when it comes to sound, when it comes to genre. Huge thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video with all these strings. And also, if you are a patron, I'm doing a giveaway of all these strings. All of these strings I am giving away to 5 lucky patrons. If you're not already a patron, I would very much so like to invite you to become a patron. You can get a whole bunch of stuff, behind the scenes stuff about gigs that I play. I do live lessons, I do private lessons, all that. You can go check out everything about my Patreon in the link in the description. So if you guys have any questions about any of the things I covered in today's episode of What Is That, feel free to drop a comment below or hit me up on my Instagram at @Dykes. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified when the newest videos are uploaded. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.